Do I actually need to rest, or am I just letting myself off the hook? She was crying when she asked me this in a session, and I suspected that she might have been crying off and on for a while. This woman was the consummate high achiever. I honestly don't remember if she was a doctor or a lawyer. She was in her 40s, she had a child or two, and she was visibly exhausted. But what she wanted to talk about in her coaching call was whether or not she actually needed to rest or if she just really needed to get her shit together to give herself a kick in the pants and get back to work. Now, as a coach, it felt to me like the answer was obvious. Clearly, she needed rest. But what she didn't need was for me to cast a verdict, for me to say, yes, clearly you are visibly tired and need an actual rest. You have permission to rest because I've given it to you. What I wanted for my client was to use her own wisdom and judgment as the only occupant of her body to determine whether it was time for a rest or time for a kick in the pants. Now, I've been thinking about the last few weeks how I could share more of my own personal journey on the podcast. Specifically, how I could share more with you in real time about the types of things that I'm working through myself. So today, I'm doing just that. Welcome to Not Your Mama's Midlife Podcast with Stephanie Lee. On this show, we're going to talk about the experiences of high achieving women and men across industries and lifestyles who are at about the midpoint in their careers and are no longer satisfied to let life happen to them. Together, we're going to purposefully create the second half of our lives by addressing burnout and overwork, by getting clarity on how we're creating the experience of our lives, how we are conspiring to keep ourselves stuck, identifying and articulating what we really want for the second half of our lives, and creating a plan to achieve it. I was reminded of the client that I just told you about today because I was asking myself the very same question. Do I actually need rest? Or do I just need to get it together and buckle down? This isn't the first time that I've asked myself this question, and I bet it's a question you've asked yourself too. When high performers get tired or get run down or get burned out, as we've talked about on recent episodes, we can have a tendency to look at ourselves and think, yeah, but do I really deserve to be tired? Like, do I actually have good enough reasons to be tired, or shouldn't I just get over it and get moving? So here were my circumstances. I spent last week on the literal other side of the world on a business trip for my day job, and I have jet lag. Before leaving the country, I scheduled the amount of time that I thought I would need on the back end to be fully recovered. And if I'm honest, I thought I was being pretty generous with that. But yesterday morning, I fell asleep on the couch while drinking my morning coffee. In January, I released 4 podcasts on burnout and did 2 webinars, all on burnout. But when I think about what and how I'm doing right now, I wonder if I'm trying hard enough. Would it take other people this long to get over it? What do other people think? So, what else is true? I didn't actually sleep that much when I was overseas between the time change and adrenaline and excitement. And we stayed busy. We did a whole lot. And also, January was a very busy month for me. And I had worked my tail off trying to be sure that everything was as done as possible before I left town. I also know that I have a couple of weeks here in February that are just a little bit less foot on the gas than it's going to be in March, when March is pretty tightly scheduled and I need to be able to move forward pretty quickly again. So, why am I sharing this with you? Am I just using this episode as a forum for Stephanie to whine? Because there's a part of me that knows logically I need to just take care of myself. It's actually the most responsible thing to do. But there's this other part of me that's saying, oh no, are you sure? I'm not sure. I think you might actually be indulgent. And I'm worried about what people will think. And you should really just push harder. And this is a trap that I see high performers, high achievers, and those that work themselves into burnout fall into. Just like my client that I told you about earlier in the episode. We think that the part of us that's saying, just take a rest, is probably the devil on our shoulder. And the you should just push harder voice is definitely the angel. But I would suggest really that the reverse is true. It's our higher self that knows it's time for a rest. And it's actually the more primitive part of ourselves who's worried about how it looks and getting disenfranchised from the pack and saying that we need to buckle down and just work harder. So, what am I going to do? You'll recognize my strategies for this from other episodes, I'm sure. And another benefit of me doing an episode like this, where you get to see in real time what I'm wrestling with, is that you can see how I'm using these strategies that I share with you for myself. But you can also see that I'm still very much learning and working on using them. I'm a work in progress too. First, I'm going to stop, check in with my body, and see what it is that I really need. So, how do I feel? If I'm honest, I feel a little frayed around the edges, a little on edge. And it's hard to keep my eyes open. Like literally, it's hard to keep my eyes open. I've walked the last couple of days because I love to walk. You know this. It makes me feel good, but my stamina has been sapped. So, what is it that I need? I know I need rest. I know that I'm not malingering, and I can believe myself. Instead of hunkering down right now, what I need is to keep moving, but slowly, gently. The second thing that I'm going to do is practice offering myself kindness and compassion. I've told you previously that I have very well trod neural pathways telling myself to get my shit together. But what I know is when I use that language and take that tone with myself, I'm actually activating my nervous system. And it doesn't need that right now. It needs to rest. So I'm going to listen to my internal voice and tone and be sure that it's kind. When I find myself, as I do, barreling down the hallway for no particular reason, I'm going to slow down and lighten my steps. I'm also going to trust myself. I'm going to trust both my own judgment about myself and what I need. And I'm going to trust that I didn't get where I am today by being secretly lazy and trying to get away with something. And then I'm going to remind myself of a few things. How I'm showing up. This worry I have about whether or not I'm doing enough, this is often how high achievers show up. Little mistrustful of ourselves and like we need to prove something to ourselves and others. So this is totally normal and not an indicator that something has gone wrong or that I'm having deep insight into my own behavior. I'm going to remind myself that I decided in 2023 that I'm going to do work and life differently. I'm going to fully rest and then work in a focused way that leads to more flow. What I've done and what so many of us do is we work in a distracted, kind of restless fashion during the workday, and then we don't fully rest when we're home. We're constantly checking our phones and our minds are on work. We don't have any detachment from it. We're neither doing good focused work during the day, nor are we fully resting when we're away from the job. So I'm learning to do this differently this year, to engage in focused work and to fully rest. And just wanting to do something differently doesn't actually make it less hard. It's hard to show up differently to myself and to others than ways that I've shown up before. It's a challenge to wonder whether or not people approve. Because, and I'll remind myself of this too, I was socialized to be a good girl. And good girls, by definition, seek to please others. They put other people's judgments ahead of their own. They're concerned about what other people think and put other people's needs ahead of their own. Not showing up as a good girl is going to be probably intensely uncomfortable. And I'm also going to remind myself that nothing's gone wrong here just because it's uncomfortable not to show up as a good girl. I don't have to explain why I'm tired. And it's actually okay if people who observe me happen to misunderstand me and believe that I should conduct myself differently, that I should have gotten over this faster. I'm also going to remind myself that because I'm tired, and jet lagged, my emotions are heightened, maybe even a little raw. So things might feel more extreme than I would expect, but I don't have to assume that means anything either. And what good practice this is. I'm learning a whole new skill set and it's uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. But as we've talked about on previous episodes, growth equals stress plus rest. And so I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm moving into the discomfort, and then I'm going to give myself good rest from that too. So as we conclude this episode, I'm going to challenge you to do a little bit of journaling. Plan for the next time that you find yourself asking, do I really need to rest or am I just letting myself off the hook? Maybe you write yourself a note with some clues about how to discern if you're really in need of rest. Maybe there are some things you want to remind yourself of next time that you're tired and attempting to marshal resources to just push on and push through. You could write a note, jot some things on a sticky note, either like an actual sticky note or the sticky apps on your computer, or make yourself a note on your phone. What do you want to remind yourself of when you're questioning whether or not you should rest or just press on? For a quick cheat sheet on how to write yourself this note, go to my website and grab the worksheet for this episode. You can get it at stephanieleecoaching.com/episode 31. You'll just scroll to the bottom of the show notes and enter your email address in the block that says episode 31 worksheet. Thanks for sticking with me through this brief 31st episode of Not Your Mama's Midlife Podcast. And I do hope you'll join me back here on your favorite podcast player or YouTube for our next episode. Wherever you listen, please do like, subscribe, and follow. Tell your friends. And if you're enjoying it, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. It really helps others to find the show. Have a great week, and I can't wait to chat with you again soon. Bye.